Greetings, welcome to W12U4 summary of the outcome based education accreditation course OBEA part 2. This will be the final part where we summarize the accreditation aspects of OBEA course. In the last unit we looked at the first part, that is the principles of outcome based education. That was part 1 of the course. Then in this unit we will summarize part 2 of the course, which will be primarily looking at the accreditation. As we noted several times, National Board of Accreditation was established in the year 1994 under section 10U of the ACT Act. Then it became autonomous in 2010. Then it became a permanent member of Washington Accord in 2014, and in 2015 it adopted the outcome based education and used that as the framework for accrediting the programs. Then revised its accreditation process and criteria just this year in 2025. In 2024 the plans were afoot and the documents were distributed, and it became effective from 2025. This version follows much more closely the criteria of Washington Accord. Though the earlier version also was based on the Washington Accord, it was more loosely based, whereas the present version much more tightly follows the Washington Accord principles. And as we noted, NBA always accredits individual programs, whereas NAAC accredits institutions. Then the NBA requires an institution seeking accreditation for its engineering programs to submit a self-assessment report to the NBA. The SAR and evaluation by NBA differ for Tier 1 and Tier 2 institutes. Tier 1 means academically autonomous, Tier 2 means academically not autonomous. Both could be affiliated, but basically Tier 1 means academically autonomous. SAR has two parts. Part A seeks institutional departmental information. Part B seeks information on the 9 criteria that the SAR specifies in the present revision. Earlier we had 10. These are the criteria and allocation of marks for Tier 1 and Tier 2 institutes. One thing you notice is that for each criterion that is listed here, the marks are same for both Tier 1 and Tier 2. However, the delineation of this criterion into sub-criteria, the marks allocated to those sub-criteria, these are all need not necessarily same. In some cases they are same, but in some cases they are different. So, the sub-criteria and the marks allocated to the sub-criteria could be different between Tier 1 and Tier 2 institutes. So, for each criterion we have to look at its sub-criteria to understand how that influences the Tier 1 or Tier 2 nature evaluation. So, the total number of marks is 1000 in both cases, and criterion wise also total number of marks is same. So, as we mentioned earlier, there were 10, but now there are only 9 criteria. Among these 8 are at the program level. So, the marks are awarded by the program evaluators. There is one institute level criterion, only one institute level criterion, and that is student supported governance. In this also there are 2 sub criteria which are program specific, so budget etc. So, this have to be evaluated by the program evaluators. So, the details of what needs to be filled up under each criteria, what are the expectations, what are the documentary context and evidence to be presented for inspection by the visiting team, and what is the further breakup of the marks allocated to a specific sub criterion. These details and all we discussed in great detail. So, we showed quickly, now we will just show what are the basic criteria. We discussed first the criterion 1, which is outcome based curriculum. Okay. Then we will look at outcome based teaching and outcome based assessment, like that. So, criterion 1 is outcome based curriculum, and we saw that there are 5 sub criteria. In turn, they have many other sub criteria, but we are looking at a slightly broader picture. So, vision, mission and program educational objectives. In the principles of outcome based education, we discussed how these need to be developed. Then curriculum structure and features, POs, PSOs and their mapping with courses. This also we have discussed in the outcome based education principles. So, here we did not discuss again how the mapping and all these have to be done. We only indicated that that information has to be provided. Appropriate course files need to be maintained and the mappings must be justified. The actual way of doing this mapping has been discussed in the general principles of outcome based education. Then we looked at the course outcomes and course articulation matrix, which again was discussed earlier in the earlier units. Then program articulation matrix, that was the first criterion. Then criterion 2 was outcome based teaching learning, one was outcome based curriculum, now outcome based teaching and learning, and it had 8 sub criteria. Processes followed to ensure quality of teaching and learning. This will include several activities that the institute must engage in to promote quality of teaching and learning. Then student capstone project, the final year project, that is extremely important. So, the quality and the processes followed to implement the student capstone project, that is another criterion. Then internship industrial training. Now, as per the revised AICTE guidelines, it is mandatory, but what is the way the institute is implementing the internship programs and industrial training programs. Then how the institute integrates seminars, mini micro projects into the curriculum, and how it uses case studies and real life examples to promote deep learning by the students. Then the use of SWAYAM, NPTEL, MOOCs, self learning components and the support provided by the institute for these activities. Then another important aspect which we discussed in the summary also, solving complex engineering problems incorporating sustainability goals. What are the efforts of the institute to promote solving complex engineering problems incorporating sustainability goals? Then steps taken for enhancing industry institute partnerships. Then the third criterion was outcome based assessment, outcome based curriculum, outcome based teaching learning, now outcome based assessment. There are again 8 sub criteria, total marks being 120. The continuous assessment, continuous internal assessment, that could be assignments, unit tests, midterm tests, etc. Quizzes, a varieties of ways are possible. So, how these are implemented by the institute? Notice that these are still summative assessments. Marks are awarded and they are used in the calculation of the final grade or the total marks. Whereas, if they are used only to determine the extent of students' understanding and finding if there are any difficulties with students' understanding and then helping them to overcome those difficulties, then it becomes a formative assessment. A summative assessment finally awards a mark which is used in the final computation. So, these are all still summative assessments. Okay. Then evaluation of semester and exam question paper, its quality, coverage of the course outcomes, matching of the cognitive levels, that will be assessed. Then evaluation of laboratory works and workshops, evaluation of industrial training as well as internships. It could be both continuous as well as at the end of the semester. Then evaluation of projects, then evidence of addressing sustainable development goals. As we keep mentioning earlier also, this has become very important in the present context, the sustainable development goals and what kind of activities are promoted, like faculty research projects or faculty initiated student works addressing the sustainable development goals, the curriculum support provided, these are all examined. Then attainment of course outcomes themselves, then attainment of program outcomes and program specific outcomes. This we just in the previous unit summarized the processes. Then criterion 4 is students performance, which is mostly data, enrollment ratio, then success rate. Success rate is the students who are completing the program in the stipulated period of the program. Then academic performance, first year, second year, third year. Here we take the students as having completed one academic year if they are permitted to go to the next academic year. Okay. So, using that as the criterion, academic performance, first year, second year, third year. Then placement, higher education and entrepreneurship, how the students find placements, how many of them go for higher education, then how many of them have become entrepreneurs. Then the professional activities. So, this data has to be provided. Then faculty information is the next criterion. This is also mostly data. Student faculty ratio, there are several guidelines on how this has to be computed. We discussed that in great detail. What are the guidelines for determining the student faculty ratio? In the earlier SCRs, there was no concept of a cluster, but that is a major change introduced in the present accreditation framework, that is a department and its related departments could form a cluster. Then some of the resources could be shared, and like for example, computer science and engineering, computer science and networking, computer science and artificial intelligence. If these three programs are running simultaneously in the institute, these three can become allied departments. So, they become a cluster. So, there are guidelines given on how this information about the cluster needs to be used, when it should be used and what are the limitations, etc. all these are discussed. Similarly, the department may be running non-engineering programs like MCA, then how that faculty has to be taken into account. All these things are discussed in great detail. We discussed all these things when we discussed the criterion 5 and 4. So, the student faculty ratio, then faculty qualifications, faculty cadre proportion, professor, associate professor and assistant professor, what is the cadre proportion, then visiting adjunct faculty and professors of practice. This also is a new concept which has been significantly promoted. Then faculty retention. So, this was criterion 5. Still earlier NBA also considered faculty as an extremely important resource. The present NBA also considers faculty as an extremely important resource, except that now the faculty related information is split into two criteria. Criterion 5 is basic information on the faculty, criterion 6 is faculty contributions. So, together if you see 120 marks here and 100 marks there, 220, still substantial marks are allocated to the faculty. So, faculty contributions 120 marks, that is basically in two parts it is there, professional development activities 60 marks, then research and development activities 60 marks. So, here there is substantial difference between tier 1 and tier 2. So, they are shown separately here, except for one sub criterion, actually they are all same. Okay. So, professional development activities would be membership in professional societies, faculty as resource persons or participants in short term training programs or faculty development programs. Then very important, faculty contribution in the development of SWAYAM, NPTEL, MOOCs, any other e-content. So, that plays a significant role. Then faculty certification of MOOCs through SWAYAM, etc. One is actually running programs, another is attending the programs. Then faculty development programs, short term training programs organized by the department, then faculty support in student innovative projects, then faculty internship training collaboration with industry. Tier 2 is quite similar, except that one criterion is missing, which is the contribution in the development of SWAYAM, MOOCs, etc. Otherwise, they are quite similar. Then we have the research and development activities, again between tier 1 and tier 2 a very small difference. So, in tier 1 academic research, PhD student details, development activities, sponsored research projects, then consultancy work, institution seed money or internal research grant to its faculty for research work. This is again another development which has taken place. They want the institutes to promote the culture of research. So, faculty who are very young and who are probably getting into these activities for the first time may not be that experienced in writing the proposals and initiating the research work. So, can the institute set up a seed fund and invite faculty to apply for that seed fund, evaluate the applications properly and then provide certain seed money for the faculty to start the research activity. So, institutional seed money to promote research. So, that is also another important criterion. Then tier 2 institutes are quite similar, except that the PhD students information is not asked for. So, otherwise same academic research, development activities, sponsored research projects, consultancy, then institutional seed money. Then criterion 7 is facilities and technical support. So, adequate and well equipped laboratories and technical manpower. The visiting team has to look into the actual laboratories and see the general environment in the laboratory and the general layout of the equipment and the general access and the general safety guidelines. So, these all will be examined by the visiting committee. So, the adequate and well equipped laboratories, additional facilities created for improving the quality of learning experience in the laboratories. If the institute can create some additional facilities beyond the curriculum, beyond what is specified in the curriculum, to improve the quality of learning experience in the laboratories, you can list them. Then maintenance of laboratories and overall ambience, safety measures. Then if you have a separate project laboratory, research laboratory or center of excellence, that again is indicated here. Then continuous improvement, just in the previous unit we mentioned the importance of closing the quality loop at the course level as well as at the program level. So, actions taken based on the result of evaluation of the course outcomes, program outcomes and program specific outcomes. So, at the course level it is with respect to COs, targets and the actual attainments, compared to that what actions are initiated. At the program level, POs and PSOs, targets, the actual attainments, based on the comparison between these two, what actions are taken up. So, that is an extremely important one, that comes in the criterion 8. Then academic audit and actions taken thereof during the period of assessment. It is very important that every institute has a regular and periodic audit of all its academic activities. So, we discussed in detail what can be the unit of academic audit and what can be the features of such an academic audit. Then improvements in the faculty qualifications and contributions, then improvements in academic performance. So, that is the continuous improvement. Then the last criterion, criterion 9, the only institute level criterion, student support and governance. We noted that this is the only institute level criterion, though it has two sub criteria which are program specific. It is connected with student support and governance, and we also observed that this criterion has the largest number, 14 total of sub criteria, very elaborate. So, the total number of marks is 120 for both tier 1 and tier 2. However, the details are different in some aspects. So, the sub criteria and allocation of marks are shown in this. As you can see, this table is quite looks a little bit dense, but given the total number of sub criteria being very large under criterion 9, this table does look a little bit crowded. But you can see that there are 14 sub criteria, 9.1 to 9.14, and program specific budget allocation and utilization, for example, is a very a criterion that is specific to a particular program. Okay. So, like that, then the total marks are different between tier 1 and tier 2 institute. So, we spent 4 units discussing this criterion in detail, the sub criteria and all that, and that is the final criterion of the SAR. Then we looked at part A of the ACR, that completed part B of ACR. First we completed part B, then part A of ACR, as we noted, institutional information is given in this. So, there is also a part C which is just a suitable declaration by the head of the institute. So, we do not have to worry about that part. In addition, there is an annexure which lists the knowledge and attribute profiles, as we noted in the last unit. This is based on the Washington Accord. Then annexure 2 lists the 11 program outcomes. Now, it is 11 not 12 as I mentioned, 11 program outcomes, and indicates the requirements of program specific outcomes, how many are allowed and how they should not duplicate POs, etc. Then annexure 3 provides samples of allied departments. As I mentioned, this is a new concept in the present accreditation framework. The idea of allied departments or a cluster of departments. It just provides samples here. We have to look into the AICTE process approval handbooks for the full list of the departments and the allied departments. Then we had earlier also the notion of a pre-qualifiers that continues in the present NBA also. An institute, whether it is tier 1 or tier 2, must comply with the criteria listed under pre-visit qualifiers. So, as I mentioned in the previous unit, this is to prevent institutes of very low quality from trying to consume the time of the NBA. So, the institute must have certain minimum quality in order to proceed further with the activities related to accreditation, like submitting the SCR, team visit, etc. So, there are certain pre-qualifiers which are listed and the institute must meet them in order to proceed further. So, this is a kind of first level or entry level test that the institute must pass. Okay. The pro forma for the pre-qualifiers has two parts. One is the profile of the institute, very similar to part A of ACR with minor differences. Then part B is program information, that needs to be provided separately for each program applied for. Okay. And these two parts are followed by a table of pre-visit qualifiers. This is the important one. An institute must check this table very carefully and ensure that it meets all the pre-visit qualifiers, otherwise it would be waste of their time as well as NBA time. It would not be allowed to proceed further with the process of accreditation at all. So, for each qualifier you must indicate the present status and compliance status, complied, not complied. You must comply with each condition qualifier that is mentioned here. Then award of accreditation we discussed in detail for tier 1. Tier 2, you please check the NBA website when it updates the tier 2 accreditation criteria. So, the NBA evaluates and awards accreditation for each program individually, okay, unlike NAAC. The accreditation criteria are different for tier 1 and tier 2 institutes. Award of accreditation 6 years, 3 years, if it is not eligible even for 3 years of accreditation, then not accredited. So, under 3 categories the awards are accredited for tier 1 institute, and the criteria we discussed in detail in the relevant units. Then the accreditation process has not changed much in the current revision also. The more or less it is similar. The eligible institutions may apply for accreditation of their programs online through an accreditation workflow management system, and the process of accreditation has 4 sequential stages essentially in the same order. The initial stage, pre-assessment stage, then assessment stage, then post-assessment stage. We discussed these stages in detail and then presented what activities go through in each stage and what kind of mechanisms are available for the institute if it has any grievances. Then applicant institution must complete the previous stage before proceeding to the next stage. We explained those processes. Then we looked into the final one, accreditation by NAAC. So, again we just in the previous unit to previous unit we mentioned NAAC was established in 1994 as an autonomous institution of UGC. NAAC is responsible for accrediting higher education institutions, and it accredits them at the institute level. As a whole, institute is accredited. So, whereas NBA accredits at the individual program level. Then NAAC launched a revised assessment and accreditation framework in July 2017, and that continued till last year. In last year only, the NAAC has proposed a revision in its accreditation structures. At that time, in July 2017, it adopted outcome based education framework. Then it used a quality indicator framework with 7 criteria. Under each of the 7 criteria, certain key indicators were identified, and these key indicators were further delineated as metrics which are actually meant to elicit response from the higher education institutions. These metrics could be quantitative, which are essentially facts and figures supplied by the institute, or qualitative, which are reports generated by the institute. In all cases, what is the documentary evidence that needs to be uploaded have been specified. The quantitative metrics can be evaluated using a system generated formula. So, the marks are very clear and objective, and that generates a system generated score. The qualitative metrics are evaluated by the peer team by going through the reports and critically analyzing the evidence presented. Then the grading system of NAAC also was based on a pre-qualifier, just like NBA also it has a pre-qualifier. The minimum 30% in system generated score. As I mentioned just now, system generated score is computed automatically based on the data for quantitative metrics. The data is clear, the formulae are clear, so the system can compute the value. The institute also can compute the value to know whether it satisfies the pre-qualifier requirements or not. The total SGS is about 70% of the total score. Then the CGPA is calculated based on 3 components: scores obtained from the system generated score, that is quantitative metrics, the scores from qualitative metrics, which are basically awarded by the peer team, which critically examines and appraises the qualitative metric reports produced by the institute. Then scores obtained on the student satisfaction survey, which is done by a third party. These will be collated through an automated procedure based on benchmarks and assessed. The maximum score is 4, the cumulative grade point average is 4 maximum. Then the final grade at that time was on a 7-point scale, A++ to C, and D is not accredited. Now, last year in 2024, NAAC has proposed reforms. An overarching committee with Dr. Radhakrishnan as the chairperson was set up by the Department of Higher Education, Ministry of Education, Government of India in November 2022 itself for strengthening the assessment and accreditation of HEIs. There were 3 important aspects that the committee was supposed to look at. So, the terms of reference of the committee were to strengthen the accreditation processes by NAAC, NBA and the ranking system by NRF, to recommend how more institutions could be made to come into the fold of accreditation, because they observed that the number of universities, institutions getting accredited was very, very low compared to what its expectation was. So, how the number of institutes could be increased which go for accreditation. So, the committee was requested to suggest ways of including more institutions, inducing more institutions to come into the fold of accreditation. Then to prepare a roadmap for allowing NAAC, NBA and NRF into the proposed National Accreditation Council in the HESA as indicated in the NEP 2020. The report of this committee on transformative reforms in accreditation was approved by the Ministry of Education, Government of India. So, now it is an official document approved by the government. Then as indicated in the earlier unit, the overarching committee with Dr. Radhakrishnan as the chairperson was set up, and based on the recommendations of the committee, The executive committee of NAAC had proposed launching of reforms in 2 phases. In one phase, binary accreditation, then it proposed maturity based graded levels. We will have to refer to the NAAC website for the latest updates regarding these NAAC reforms. The committee suggested categorizing HEIs based on their orientation, vision and heritage and legacy, then seeking information from the HEIs that are appropriate for their category. It suggested 10 attributes and then input, process, outcome, impact metrics spread over these 10 attributes. Then it suggested identifying a simplified superset of essential variables. That is, actually these would be the data that the institute has to supply. That is yet to be identified, these essential variables. Though all the other informations, input, process, outcomes, metrics, etc. are all there, ultimately what the institute has to supply as the information should be the essential variables. That still it has to be worked out. So, once the NAAC announces those, the institute can prepare the SSR accordingly. So, the simplified superset of essential variables that would be truly indicative of the key parameters and assigning them weightages, business logics for the varied purposes of approval, accreditation and ranking. So, these were the reforms which are suggested, and as still the official documents from the NAAC are pending, the higher education institutions must keep referring to the NAAC website regularly for the official listing of the new criteria, the metrics, the essential variables, accreditation processes, formats, the SSR, the final grading mechanisms, all these things it must keep monitoring, and under these transformative reforms, what shape these still all these aspects will take care of, the HEIs must keep referring the NAAC website. Okay. So, the information presented here was indicative only, but it shows the nature of the transformations that are going to happen in the accreditation. So, with that we come to the end of the summary of this course. We hope that you enjoyed the course, found it useful and found it engaging, and we hope that you will make good use of the material presented in the course, and wish you the very best, and we also wish you the very best in the ensuing final examinations. If you have any further queries, please feel free to post them in the forum, and we will try to answer them. Once again, we thank you for your interaction, and we wish you the very best in all your endeavors to improve the quality of education in Indian undergraduate engineering programs. Once again, thank you, and we wish you the very best. Thank you. Thank you.